Dismissive avoidant. Hurt you and act like nothing happened? Here's why it feels so cruel. There's a special kind of heartbreak that happens when someone you love hurts you and then acts like nothing ever happened. No apology, no acknowledgement, just cold silence or small talk, like everything's normal. If you've ever loved a dismissive avoidant, you know this pain. You know what it's like to be emotionally gutted while they carry on like they just stepped out of a coffee shop. And you're left wondering, did I imagine the whole thing? How can someone be so detached, so unaffected, after causing so much hurt? The truth is, dismissive avoidants don't process conflict or emotional damage the same way most people do. When they hurt you and act like nothing happened, it's not just insensitivity, it's a defense mechanism. It's how they've learned to survive intimacy by avoiding it. You see, dismissive avoidants are terrified of emotional closeness, even if they crave connection deep down. They learned early in life, through neglect, conditional love, or inconsistent parenting, that feelings weren't safe, that expressing needs or confronting pain led to rejection or punishment. So as adults, they stay safe by disconnecting from emotional accountability. When you express hurt, they may see it as an attack. When you ask for emotional repair, they may experience it as suffocating. So they shut down, brush it off, or pretend like it never happened. Not because it wasn't real, but because they don't know how to stay in the discomfort of emotional vulnerability. When a dismissive avoidant hurts you, their instinct isn't to comfort you, it's to protect themselves. They compartmentalize pain. They put the event in a mental box, lock it up, and never revisit it. That's why it feels like they're living in a different reality. One where your tears never fell, one where the argument never got heated, one where you didn't go to bed broken while they fell asleep like nothing was wrong. This behavior can feel like emotional gaslighting, not necessarily intentional, but deeply invalidating. It forces you to doubt your reality, your reactions, your worth. And that's where the real damage happens, not just in the initial hurt, but in the way it's erased. You may try to explain how deeply something hurt you, hoping they'll finally get it. But instead of leaning in with empathy, the dismissive avoidant may dismiss, minimize, or redirect the conversation. They might say, "You're overreacting," or worse, "That wasn't a big deal." This not only shuts down your voice, but also subtly trains you to stop expressing pain altogether. Over time, you start swallowing your needs. You stop bringing things up. You begin to fear that expressing emotions will only push them further away. And slowly you disappear in the relationship. Not because you're weak, but because the emotional cost of being real feels too high. Here's what you need to understand. Dismissive avoidants aren't evil. They're not heartless monsters, but they are emotionally unavailable. And emotional unavailability hurts. They've learned to self-soothe through withdrawal. That's why after a conflict, they may act like nothing happened. To them, moving on means avoiding the emotional debris altogether. But for you, emotional healing begins with acknowledgement. And when that acknowledgement is denied, the wound stays open. The silence becomes louder than words, and love starts to feel like abandonment wrapped in politeness. This doesn't mean you have to accept this dynamic forever. The real question is, can a dismissive avoidant change? The answer is yes, but only if they want to. Only if they are aware of the pattern and actively working to unlearn it. You cannot fix them with more love, more patience, or more understanding. In fact, the more you bend to accommodate their emotional distance, the more invisible you become. Change doesn't come from chasing. It comes from stepping back and letting them feel the consequences of their detachment. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to make them care. It's also important to remember that your emotional needs are not too much. Wanting an apology, clarity, or emotional repair is not a flaw. It's a sign of secure attachment. You were wired to bond, to connect, to repair after rupture. The dismissive avoidant, on the other hand, was wired to detach, to retreat, to survive rupture by ignoring it. That's why you feel stuck in a painful loop. You seek intimacy, they seek distance. You want resolution, they want silence. And every time they act like nothing happened, they teach you that your pain doesn't matter. That's a soul-crushing lesson you never deserved to learn. And here's the thing. When they come back around, acting normal, maybe even being sweet or sexual again, It can be disorienting. You might mistake it for healing, but it's not reconciliation, it's avoidance. Their return isn't a sign that everything's okay. It's a sign that they've emotionally skipped over the part where accountability was needed. And if you accept that pattern, you're unintentionally co-signing your own erasure. You're sending the message, you can hurt me and I'll still be here. You don't have to repair anything to stay in my life. And that's how emotional neglect turns into a cycle. If you want to break this pattern, the first step isn't confrontation, it's clarity. Recognize what's happening for what it is, a dynamic rooted in fear, not in love. A person protecting themselves, not prioritizing you. You don't have to demonize them, but you do have to stop making excuses for behavior that leaves you in emotional limbo. Start choosing your peace over their silence. Start valuing your voice over their comfort. Because healing doesn't come from someone finally seeing your pain. It comes from you finally seeing your own worth and refusing to abandon it for anyone. In the end, love without emotional accountability is just chemistry without safety. And chemistry is not enough to build a life. You deserve the kind of relationship where hurt is acknowledged, where emotions are not punished, and where silence isn't used as a weapon. Don't let the dismissive avoidant's inability to face their own emotions convince you that yours are invalid. You are not too much. You are not overreacting. You are asking for something human. And if someone can't meet you there, you have every right to walk away. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because real love isn't just about connection, it's about emotional responsibility. And if someone hurts you and acts like nothing happened, they may still be in the room, but emotionally, they've already left. If this message hit home for you, know this. You're not alone, and you're not crazy for wanting emotional connection. You're human, and your pain is valid, even if someone else refuses to acknowledge it. The worst thing about being lied to is knowing you weren't worth the truth. This quote captures the emotional pain of being hurt by someone, like a dismissive avoidant who then pretends nothing happened. It speaks to the deeper wound, not just the action itself, but the erasure of your reality and the denial of your worth. Healing from a dismissive avoidant isn't just about letting go of them. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you had to shrink just to keep them close. You don't have to beg to be seen. You don't have to chase someone who runs from their own heart. What you need, what you deserve, is someone who meets you in the emotional space where real love lives. If you found value in today's video, give it a like to help it reach others who need it. Subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a deep dive like this again. And if you're ready to break free from emotional neglect and build stronger boundaries, check out the next video linked right here. It's made for you. Until then, take care of your heart, stand firm in your worth, and never forget, silence from someone else should never silence you.